So you're thinking about moving to the Boise, Idaho area, but you kind of want to cut through all of the BS out there that makes it seem like it is the absolute ultimate paradise that everybody's going to love, nobody's ever going to leave. Well, that's just not the truth. What I want to talk about today are 6 of the top reasons that talking to clients of my own, researching, and then just really asking people what their opinion is, why we're seeing people actually leave the Boise, Idaho area, and they kind of regret relocating here or whatever their situation was. Some of the reasons that we're going to talk about today is the relationship of the rising house costs with the job wages in our job economy. We're going to talk about winters and how they seem to just kind of hit people in the face and it's not exactly what you're expecting. We're going to talk about the importance of moving to the right area, because if you move to the wrong area, it might completely sour what your overall Idaho dream was. We're going to talk about the big growth that's happening and all the change and everything. It just ends up being too much for some people. We're going to talk about some of the big things that are lacking here when we're talking about entertainment and things to do that some people moving from bigger cities are just a little bit more accustomed to. And then we're going to wrap it up with the cultural shock that can happen when people move to the Boise, Idaho area, for better or for worse. But let's go ahead and get into it right now. Okay, so jumping right in, let's go ahead and get into it. I want to talk about the number one thing that I talk to clients about when they relocate here, or also to people that are just leaving Idaho. This might be where they grew up and they're starting to realize that this might not be their forever home, is the relationship right now between the incredible kind of inflation and just overall meteoric rise of housing prices and housing cost here, both on the purchase and on the rent side, in relation to what we actually get paid. Boise, Idaho in general has been one of the hottest real estate markets for 5-10 years now. It has been consistently growing, especially during the pandemic when all of the remote work was happening. We had a ton of people flock from some of the bigger cities that had those higher paying San Francisco jobs, but they could live here in Idaho. Their money was going to stretch a lot further. This was only one factor, but we just saw housing prices double and sometimes even triple over the last 10 to 15 years. As of filming this video, the median house price in Ada County, which is Boise, Eagle, Meridian, Kuna, think of kind of that part of our town, is $520,000. This is an 85% increase from 2019 when the median house price was just around $280,000. Now, in a vacuum, that is something that we've seen all over the country. We're seeing real estate and housing prices really kind of skyrocket, and there's all sorts of stuff here. This is something that we can talk about more if you'd like to, kind of where I see real estate going. But the big thing here, and the reason we're seeing people leave our town, is the relation that it has to the growth of actual wages. But on the flip side, the average median income for a household here in Boise, Idaho is just shy of $70,000. Using that same year, 2019, when housing prices were around $280,000 to today, where it's $520,000, the median income for a household in 2019 here was just around $60,000. Now, that median income, like I just said, is just shy of $70,000. That is just a whopping 16% increase over the same span. So basically what we're starting to see is housing is increasing like this, wages are increasing like this, and that gap is just getting to be bigger and bigger. And this can be something that's really hard to support, whether you're moving here thinking that your job, whatever it was going to actually get you farther here. We're starting to see that change a little bit. But also for those people that are living here locally or might be moving from somewhere because they couldn't afford to buy a home there, their expectations now here of buying a home here in the Boise, Idaho area, it's just becoming a lot harder. Some of this comes down to we were just so undervalued for so long. We were kind of a hidden gem up here in Boise that people hadn't quite grasped onto, and now it's exploded. All of this is going to start to even out. We've seen that over the last year, but this is the kind of gap that we really need to get sorted, or else people will continue to move out. And something that I talk about a lot on this channel is how relatively expensive Boise is compared to some other places. And this is something that we still have to keep in mind, is even though this gap here is getting pretty large in the Boise area, and it is causing some people to leave, compared to some of the other towns, of course, the Californias, the New Yorks, certain areas in Seattle, for example, the housing price here is still extremely affordable compared to what they're used to. And that's where all of this is just It's kind of a game of figuring out what the best place is for you and your family. Jumping into this second reason that I'm seeing people move away from Idaho and Boise in particular are the winters that we have up here. This was not a huge shock to me when I came up here over 10 years ago. I'm from Colorado originally, and well, snow and Colorado kind of go hand in hand. When I came up here, I actually felt that it was not as snowy and it wasn't as extreme. The one difference was our winters can get super cold. So all of this is again relative to where people are coming from. If they're moving from Alaska, the winters here are no problem. But if you're moving from Southern California, Florida, Texas, where you're not used to seeing snow or any sort of cold weather at all, these can hit you in the face if you're not expecting it. When it comes to snowfall in the valley here, we are pretty mild. On average, we get around 19 inches of snow every single year. I always like to tell my clients that you'll probably expect 2 to 3 snowstorms where you're actually gonna have a few inches that stick throughout the next few days. You're gonna have to get out there with your shovel, your snowblower, whatever it is. And of course, if you're wanting to get up into the mountains, you wanna go live in more of the Cascade, McCall, Garden Valley, the snow there, completely different ballgame. When we're talking about temperature though, we do get some pretty big extremes in the winters, but also the summers. We do have all 4 seasons, and frankly, you can check out a different video where I talk about the reasons why people move here, and that's a big drawing factor. But I don't think people always consider how cold it can actually get in the winter, how hot it can get in the summer, and how you really do have to exist in those extremes to get to enjoy the spring and fall throughout the rest of the year. In January and February, you will most likely have 2 to 3, sometimes 4 weeks. Every year's been a little bit different recently, where you're gonna be in the single digits, the teens, you're gonna be below freezing. Again, if you're coming from Alaska, Colorado, Montana, this will seem extremely normal to you. You have your winter coat, you're feeling prepared. But if you're coming from somewhere that really doesn't get lower than 40 or 50 degrees and you're not used to wearing a coat every single day, this can really hit you in the face, and it can have a mental toll on your actual ability to enjoy living in the area. Like everything, it's all about the expectations that you come in with. There are some awesome things about our hot winter. That would make 0 sense. The hot summers that we have, getting out on the lake, feeling super good, floating the river, getting your tan on, kind of that extreme stuff because it lasts for just a couple weeks. Same thing with our cold winters. It allows you to have that balance. You can go out snowshoeing, you can go ice fishing. There's all sorts of great activities, but if you're not expecting it, this is gonna be a tough place for you. But let's go ahead and transition into the third reason that we're gonna talk about today. We're gonna talk about people that leave the area because they just moved to the wrong area. This happens more than I care to admit with people that are relocating from here, especially from the East Coast who aren't super familiar with the area, but it happens with everyone here. It even happens with people that have grown up here their entire life and they just want their piece of Idaho. One of the big scenarios where this happens a lot are people who are coming here and they're asking for, hey Chase, I would like to look at properties that have 5 to 10 acres. I want my Idaho kind of paradise. I want my space. I don't want people to mess with me. I want to kind of have that more homestead or farmstead life. There are also people that want this in the mountains, but a lot of times they're thinking about, okay, if I'm gonna buy a piece of property, what I've always been told is I need to buy land with that. Or they're coming from a place, let's use Southern California, for example, where lot sizes, the land out there has just become so important that you're really not getting much of any sort of lot on your house. So you come out here and you want a little bit bigger space. What people don't tell you is when you want that 5-10 acre property, you want to be separated a little bit. You want to live in the rural outskirts. This can be perfect for certain families. This can also drive you crazy if you're not expecting the loneliness that can come with it, the 30 to 40 minutes that you have to take every single time you want to go into the store, those sorts of considerations that when you're purchasing the property, some people take those as the pros and that is what they're looking for. But we do have a lot of people who move out here thinking that's what they want, and then they kind of live that experience for 6 months to a year. And then this also happens to people who are moving out here and, for example, they're used to the long commute. Again, I'm originally from Colorado, so I grew up with parents that did a 45-minute to an hour commute every single day. This was just normal and what we kind of grew up with, and that's what I expected when I was thinking about the work commute. When people are moving here and they're coming with that sort of expectation of what the commute to work and what the city traffic should look like, then they get here and they're here for 6 months or so, and they realize that Traffic is not a huge deal here. It is definitely, before all of the locals and the people that live here come for me in the comments, traffic is getting worse. We are growing faster than we've had the infrastructure for. A little bit more on that later in the video. Traffic is an issue once you're used to being here. This is the big signal that I tell my clients, and I kind of joke with them. Once you start complaining to me about it taking 15, 20 minutes to get somewhere, I know that you're getting used to here and you're getting a little bit closer to being a local, just purely because relatively our traffic is a breeze. But when people are looking at the area that they want to move here, a lot of times they'll say, hey, we'll have our initial buyer consult and I'll let them know, where are you going to be working? Oh, I'm going to be working in downtown Boise, for example. What type of commute are you wanting to kind of stay in? What's our radius here? And they'll throw out a number like 45 minutes. When we look at 45 minutes from Boise, Idaho, you're going to get out to a ton of area. You're going to be out past Caldwell. You're going to be out towards Mountain Home. There are some areas that you can get to within that amount of time, but that's the time of the commute that they're used to, and they're not adjusting for the area that we have. So after being here for a little bit and doing that commute, they start to realize when talking to people at work, they start to realize when they're going out and having fun with people, wait, I could very easily live in Meridian instead of Wilder, and I could get to work within 20 minutes or 30 minutes if the traffic is super bad compared to my 45-minute drive. What the heck are we doing out here? That is not what I'm looking for. Or of course, they move into Boise thinking that Boise was just the only place that they wanted to live, and they realize their vibe didn't match there as much. They'd rather be out in Middleton where it's a little bit more rural, or they'd rather be out in Eagle being a little bit closer to the trails and the foothills. Whatever it is, if you don't put the legwork in at the beginning to really identify the perfect place for you to live, that can be kind of a shock after 6 months to a year being like, you know what? I just don't know if this was the right fit. Just wanted to cut in here and give you a quick reminder that I am a licensed agent here in the Boise, Idaho area. If you're new to the channel and this is the type of content that you're looking for and you want to stay up to date on all things living here in Boise, Idaho, hit that subscribe button down below so that you're the first to hear about what it's actually like to live, work, and play here in this great place. And if you have any specific questions at all, feel free to drop a comment below, or in the pinned comment, you'll find all of my contact information. Feel free to give me a call, shoot me a text, an email, or just schedule a Zoom directly. Whatever it is, if there's a way that I can help, I would absolutely love to. But let's go ahead and hop right back in. Moving forward to number 4 of the reasons that I'm seeing people leave or kind of regret moving here is just the fact that there is so much change happening. There is so much change, whether we're talking about the change of them actually moving, the stress of moving, the different kind of life that they're going to have. Everybody's making new friends. They don't have family, all of that. But then also you couple into the Boise that people moved here to 4 or 5 years ago is pretty different than the Boise that's here today. And this change, let me let you in on a little secret, is not going anywhere. The rate of development and the growth that our city and the surrounding cities, just the Treasure Valley as a whole, is experiencing is just at its infant stages. We're going to continue to grow. It's a great place to live, and people are clued into the fact now. For people who are coming up here and they're falling in love with small town Idaho, they're falling in love with that small city that only 200,000 people are living in. When they move their family up here and they start to see that that's going to change a lot, that can be a little bit of a shock to their system because they're so used to what their old city is like that they're already equating to, oh my gosh, is Boise going to turn into Dallas, Denver, Portland, New York City, whatever it is? That's what they're most worried about. Their first instinct is, I'm going to get out before that starts to happen again because I was not happy there. I don't want to do that again here. Let's figure out the next town to move to. Now, and this is just my opinion, I do not think that we are on the same trajectory as some of these other cities, these massive places. We're so far behind them in terms of development and population that we still have a lot of time to make sure we don't turn into those. But that kind of comes down to us as citizens. There's all sorts of things that go into that. And also acknowledging that some of this growth that is happening, it is completely natural. I always like to talk to my clients who either been here for 40 years, they kind of grew up here, they've been here for 10 years, and now they're unhappy with what's going on. I see it all the time. If you spend any time in Idaho, you're just gonna hear, we see it on the channel all the time. Nope, we're full. Don't tell anybody about this. When you really think about it, all of this growth and development is extremely natural because if you absolutely love the place you live, if it convinced you to move here, why wouldn't it convince others? Why wouldn't this start to happen? And that's just kind of the next stage in the development of our little valley and our place that we like to call home. If people want to put their heads in the sand about it, this is not the video for that. I'm not meaning to get off onto this tangent, but this can be something that if you're moving here expecting what you saw 5 years ago, after a few years, things start to change. We're seeing people start to move because they're worried about what this place is going to become. But on the flip side, and this is something that I do talk to clients a lot about as well, people here who are kind of excited about some of the development, is it's bringing in a lot of cool things to do. And this is kind of in relation to number 5 of the reasons why I'm seeing people actually leave our place. It's just the difference in what they think are kind of the big things to do. No matter what big city you're coming from, you probably have at least one amusement park, you have Six Flags, Water World, whatever it is, but you probably also have a professional sports team or two, you have more semi-pro, you might have a massive university, all of these big kind of sporting events and little brands that you can be loyal to. Boise on the whole doesn't have these things quite yet. We do have Boise State University, which it is a college, but people here are fiercely loyal to their blue and orange. And a big part of this is we don't have any professional sports teams. We have a couple of semi-pro teams. We have the minor league hockey team. We have a minor league baseball team. We have things that you can go out and do, but we don't have all of the professional teams. As somebody who moved up here from Colorado, again, this is still something that I'm getting used to because I grew up with Denver Nuggets NBA, Colorado Avalanche NHL, we had the Denver Broncos, Colorado Rockies, we had an arena football team, we had the MLS, we had the lacrosse, we had every single sport imaginable. So I had a team that I grew up supporting and I could go to a game or two every once in a while. If this is something that's really important to you and your family's kind of identity, this is going to be a little bit of a shock because we don't have those. And when we look at, again, the difference between us and some of these big cities, we are not going to be a market that's going to have a professional football team or anything anytime soon. Some of these things are growing, but things like shopping, we don't have extensive shopping areas here. We have a couple of malls, we have downtown, we have the village, but we don't have all of these shopping districts that you might be used to. And then another thing that still to this day, I talk to my wife and it a little bit gets me, but things as small as mini golf. I grew up in an area where there were 10, 12, 15 mini golf courses within 30 minutes that I could go around and I could just play. And this was something that we always did as kids. Well, here in Boise, we really now, as of filming this, we have Wahoo's, we now have Top Golf, and that's about it. There's a couple of private ones with some country clubs. There's the PGA Superstore, all of that kind of stuff. But we have 1 to 2 opportunities for mini golf where some of these bigger cities have 15, 20, 30, just a whole nother scale of things to go out and do. As somebody who might be relocating from that area, that's gonna feel like a big change for you and your family. And that can be enough that kind of pushes you back to, you know what? We miss that. That's what we wanna do. I wanna be able to go out to Six Flags, etc. But for a lot of people, this is also something that draws them. We don't have that big city and all of those things to do, but we also have some of the best nature and recreation out there. Our focus on things to do on the weekends here is a lot of outdoors. It's going rafting, it's going hunting, it's camping, it's going for a hike, it's playing with our dogs. It's a very different atmosphere here. And so if that's not what you and your family are looking for, it's gonna be a little bit of a different place. And then finally, and this is something that pops up with a lot of people that I talk to, whether they're thinking about moving here or whether they're deciding that this isn't the right place for them, is just the utter shock and the difference of culture that is here in Boise. Again, comparing to some of these bigger cities in California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, you're probably used to a pretty diverse community. You have different places to eat, you have cultural events to go to, different types of entertainment, all of these things. Boise just doesn't have those right now. On the whole, Boise and the surrounding areas are primarily white, and that exposure to diversity and different things out there to do is going to be pretty limited here. I will say, as somebody again who's been here for a decade, we're seeing this change a lot. We're getting some of those different diverse perspectives. We're getting the different restaurants, the different cultural events, especially in downtown Boise. Also, when we're looking at kind of the political beliefs and the progressive liberal values versus the conservative values, depending on where you're coming from, you might feel a little bit shocked here where we don't have the same liberal and progressive beliefs that are kind of widespread. You're not going to feel completely alienated. As of the last election, I think Ada County was about 50% Republican, 46% Democrat. So it's not as skewed as people like to kind of portray, but Idaho traditionally is a pretty conservative place to be. Regardless of what your kind of political beliefs and such are, the way that I talk to clients about it all the time is people here, you're going to be fine whichever side of it you're on. There's going to be places, there's going to be a community for you here. The main thing that people really resent here is if you're coming in trying to completely change the entire town, you're trying to change their way of life, and the way that they put it is you're trying to change this city into the city that you ran from. Because there are a lot of people who do move up here for some of those things that might be missing. They're moving up for the different stuff than they left. But personally, as someone who is definitely more liberal than most of the people here in Idaho, I think this is one of the great things about the growth that we're having is we're starting to see that we really don't have to be this divisive, it's only conservative here, nobody else is allowed, because all of us agree on a lot more things than we need, and that's where the community can really thrive. Those are just 6 of the reasons that I talk to people about why they might be leaving our area or they might regret moving here to Boise, Idaho. Of course, you all know I'm a little bit biased. I love the area up here, but it is something where it is not a paradise. This is not the best place for everybody. But when you're thinking about where you want to move, where you want to set up roots, at the end of the day, it's a pros and a cons list. Are there more pros that you absolutely love that you think that this could be a great place for you? Or are there more cons that are like, this isn't what we're looking to escape, this isn't providing us the opportunities, therefore I don't know if it's the right fit. I do not want you to move here if it's not going to be the right fit, because I want you to be happy. I want you to find the place that is the perfect fit for you. I'm just a little bit biased, and I think that this can be a great place for most people, and the stats say it is. We're still one of the hottest markets. More people are moving here than they're moving out. Whatever the stats say, take from that what you will. After hearing all of these, if it did not utterly scare you off and you have any questions about the best things about Boise or finding that perfect place to live so you don't regret it, feel free, reach out. If there's any way that I can help, I would absolutely love to. All of my information is down in the pinned comment. I would love to chat with you and figure out how we can help you have that Idaho dream come true. But until then, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one.